And after the greatest political comeback in American history, we're going to lead the greatest economic comeback in American history under Donald Trump's leadership.
Okay, sounds good. I'm all on board for it. And Lord knows we need it because we have got to grow our way out of this freaking disaster we're in. But can we? What is realistic? What is not? We know Carol will give it to us straight as she always does. Joining me now, the great Carol Roth, author of the book, several books actually, which are all wonderful, but You Will Own Nothing, highly recommend it. Okay, Carol, obviously the economy will get better under these two, under Trump and the GOP and fewer regulations, and just on energy alone, because there's such a wad of money waiting there to be spread around. So it will get better. How much better can it get? They can't fix everything. That's not realistic. How much better can it get?
All right. So first of all, this is our first time coming together since the election, and we have not taken a collective victory lap. We have not, bathed in the optimism. So this will probably be my most optimistic time with you. And I'm sure as time goes on, this will kind of tail off. But I'm in this moment of optimism because I do think that sentiment is very self-fulfilling. If you are a business or an individual that wants to, do something to make an investment, like you're not going to do that under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. But now when these shackles you've been freed from them, you have the feeling that you can go ahead and make these types of investments. And those are the things that are going to grow. So right now, I'm just going to bathe in the sense of optimism. And I do think that growth is the key here. And some of the areas that are really going to help with that is one, regulation. The Biden-Harris administration on small business alone, $1.7 trillion regulatory burden. So Donald Trump's going to walk that back. He's going to do things like put back flexible work. He was pro-independent contractor and gig worker. That's great for those people and for small business. He's going to create some certainty around longer term tax cuts. So all of these things can really help us to grow. And I do feel good that he has people around him this time that are more entrepreneurial. The Viveks, the Elon Musks, these are the kinds of people that can show that path of growth and sort of balance that against any type of spending cuts that we're going to do. Now, does this mean that you're going to all of a sudden see prices drop back to the levels of 10 years ago? Absolutely not. I think the path forward is through growth and then making sure that wages across the board do really catch up. And so, things are you're not going to see those prices drop down, but if your purchasing power can help catch up, that would be very helpful. It is a very delicate needle to thread, Jesse, and I'm sure we'll be talking about this a lot. So I'm not promising that you're not getting more inflation, and I'm not promising that everything is going to be great forever, but there is at least some semblance of a path that we need to begin to walk down.
Okay, walk me through the threading of that needle, Carol, or why is it a delicate needle, I guess is the way I want to put this. As you just laid out, blow up the energy industry, in a good way. Blow it up in a good way. Deregulate the economy. We're going to get growth. It doesn't seem delicate at all. It seems fairly straightforward. I know what you're talking about, but please explain, why is this a delicate needle to thread at all?
Well, I love the fact that I've taught you so much over the years that you actually know what I'm talking about now, because I remember when we started, you had no idea what I was talking about. So let's just take a moment to celebrate that as well.
I still don't.
But the reality is we're in a different situation because of our fiscal foundation. If you think back to the 80s and what they had to contend with, they had 30%-ish debt to GDP. Right now, we have more than 120% debt to GDP. We're running deficits that are double the historic average, and we're not, in an offensive war or anything that's an emergency situation right now. So that limits the options that we have, because if we really increase how much debt to GDP we have, or we increase the deficits to GDP, we're going to end up in a sovereign debt crisis. And that's very wonky, and we could talk about that another day. But just if you believe me on that, the fact of the matter is that we have to make sure when we make these cuts to government that it's done so with the growth alongside of it. Otherwise, you end up shrinking the GDP, you end up shrinking the tax collections, and that actually ends up expanding the deficit, which is something we don't want to see. So we really need strategic thinkers in there who are going to understand we can't just go in with the hatchet we would all love to take to the government on day one without the delicate modeling out of how we're going to have the growth exceed what we're doing on the cutting side. So it has to be done in a very methodical manner. And if it's not done in the right manner, then it could have, adverse consequences. One of those no good deed becomes or goes unpunished types of situations.
Carol, Trump loves tariffs. He loves to talk about them. He's very much more of a Teddy Roosevelt type Republican. It's not been the norm in GOP circles, but Trump kind of has brought that back. People have a vague understanding of what tariffs are, but is this a good idea? A complete disaster? He loves them. He talks about it a lot, and he means it. He's been talking about it since long before he got into politics. What's the deal with tariffs?
So I am a centrist on tariffs. I think that there are some places where there are businesses who don't have the ability to make their products in the United States. There isn't the know-how. The cost would be absolutely prohibitive. And to put tariffs on those companies will actually put them out of business. However, there are places where not only do we have a lot of options, but maybe it's critical to our national security. This is one of those things we learned during COVID is how much of the supply chain is sitting in other countries and could absolutely cripple us. And for those countries, we do want, or types of situations, we do want to incentivize companies to be making those products here in the US. So I think, again, a thoughtful, strategic approach needs to be taken. The other issue with tariffs, just like everything else, is math and logic. It's really lovely to say we'll just go and throw a tariff on everything. But we have to remember that 70% of our economy is service-based. It's not goods-based. And people will say, well, Carol, that's the whole point, to bring manufacturing back. But we don't have the lowest cost of energy. We certainly don't have the lowest cost of labor. The reality is we're not going to be able to grow manufacturing to a point anytime in the near future where tariffs are going to be able to sustain the government that we have, or even one that we shrink down slightly. So again, a thoughtful, strategic approach. There are going to be places where it makes sense, but does this happen across the board? No. And again, we're turning around a huge ship here, Jesse. So this is stuff that is going to, we're going to have to do it one step at a time. It's, how do you eat an elephant? You eat it one bite at a time. You can't just try to put the whole thing in your mouth. So I think that's what people are going to have to understand, is that there does need to be a thoughtful approach, and this is going to have some time. We just need to be moving that in the right direction to start making that progress.
Yeah, it's a delicate process. Picture yourself guiding Whoopi Goldberg hamburger out of a bar into her car. That's kind of what we're left dealing with here. Carol Roth, you are the best. Come back and join us soon. I appreciate you. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.